You thought we were done with Scarefest. We're not. Today, we are going to be going through and I'm going to be ranking all the Scarefest videos I did. That's all 31 videos that I crafted, created, recorded, edited all by myself. I thought it would be fun to go through, just go and give my honest opinions and thoughts over that because some of these videos were really, really good. Some of these videos just were not, at least to me. These rankings are solely my opinion because I'm the one who created them. And a lot of what I'm going to be ranking them on is the process, how scary they were, whether I would spend money on the game if I hadn't already owned it, and just overall my favorites out of all of them. We're going to be going in order from when they released. So we're going to jump right in with Locked Up. It was the very first episode, October 1st. Locked Up was the only video I did not have a webcam on. I recorded this video and I was like, I think this would be more fun if I had a webcam on, just so that way I could have a more genuine reaction as opposed to just throwing them out there. At the time of recording this has been the best video. Locked Up was the first one of Amica games that I played, and it was overall a genuinely solid experience. I will give it a B. I'm giving it a B more so because I didn't actually finish it, um, and that's on me. Next up, Fears to Fathom, Episode 1, Home Alone. S tier, automatically. This is the prime example of what it's all about for me. Fears to Fathom, Home Alone was such a intense, scary kind of game for me. It might not necessarily have been scary to watch, but when you're playing that, when you have headphones in, when you are trying to talk, when you're focusing, everything just clicks. Everything works. It has been an absolute favorite of mine. S tier all the way. It's also free to play. So what the hell? Go out and give it a go. Next up, we have the Crooked Man. It's definitely one that I probably could have done a little bit better of a video on. The story I found interesting, but I'm gonna have to give it a C tier. It's to get a proper video for that was gonna be a lot more time than I had to give that. So C tier. It's a good game from what I've played, but it's just I didn't have enough time to let it stew. Find Yourself. I believe that Find Yourself, which is a Mika Games one, delved on the story with the kid. And so I do remember that this story, no, it wasn't the kid, but this story was really good. It had a lot of intense moments, and it was all around a really good one. A tier. Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Back in the day, it was an excellent kind of game. Now it's really lost its time. For what it's worth and for the nostalgia, I'm gonna have to give it a B. No. Yeah, I'm gonna have to give it a B. It has a lot going for it, but when you haven't played it in 10 years, it's just it is what it is. Next up, Summer of 58. This was a really solid story and a really interesting game to play. I'll put it above Locked Up and FNAF 2 because I actually beat it and I had a lot of fun playing it. Five Nights at Freddy's 3, D tier, very, very terrible. The game was not fun for me to record. The game was not, just wasn't, it wasn't good. At the time when FNAF was big in pop culture, it was a good game. It definitely aged excruciatingly poorly. If you go and take a look at the thumbnail, I have like a screwed up Springtrap specifically to joke about this. All right, next up we have Father's Day. And this was probably the best Amiga game that I played. And I will have to give it A tier. If you go and watch it, it has so many different story elements that just makes Find Yourself, Summer 58, Locked Up. It all connects, and that is so good. It's got a lot of really solid scares. The atmosphere was really good. definitely a favorite. So next we have Five Nights at Freddy's 4. I loved FNAF 4. I love FNAF and I loved recording it. I recorded it so much I did it 2 times as opposed to FNAF 2 and FNAF 3. The game is just one of the best in the series. It is one of the scariest. The motion sickness was something that I was not a terrible fan of. Um, but I made do with it and I got it. I got it. Next up, what we have is September 7th. Very short game. I definitely think it is. It's got a good amount of jump scares, relatively lower cost and price. And I was looking forward to playing. It was another Mika game. It was the last one that they've come out with up to this point. And it's all around fun. It's very middle tier, and I'm okay with keeping it right there. So FNAF Sister Location. I mean, for me, this is an obvious C tier. I'm gonna absolutely put it in front of Crooked Man. Sister Location tries to revamp the series, and it's very hit or miss. And I guess that's really all I gotta say for it. Next up, we have Fears to Fathom, Episode 2, The Norwood Hitchhike. Super, super good. Very, very well done. I was absolutely okay with spending money on it. I was not disappointed by the story, the atmosphere, and everything going on. New mechanics were being introduced. It was so, so good. It was not as scary and terrifying to me as Home Alone. Fears to Fathom Home Alone. And that's okay. It is an absolutely excellent piece and something that I would recommend buying for anyone who wants to get themselves scared. Next up, Faith, the Unholy Trinity, absolute S tier. The game has 3 chapters, and I played through all 3 chapters in the video, and that is the longest video I have on my channel at an hour and 40 some minutes, I believe. Let me check. After editing, it looks like Faith took about an hour and 45 minutes. And just to play that kind of a game, it reminds me so much of the Oregon Trail. That's the game. It reminds me so much of that in terms of its play style, its graphics. It really delves into a very solid religious aspect. I played it just before seeing the new Exorcist movie, and this game definitely helped me get excited for that, despite what people might say about it. Absolute S tier, absolute worth its own playthrough. So next up we have Dreader. It may be free to play, but the scares were not exactly what I was looking for. It had a very nice creepy aspect to it, but for longevity, it was very short, and it was something that I just wanted to get put out there because I was working on a lot of other time-consuming videos at that point. Nothing against it. It's solid, it's good to play, but it's not anything higher than what I've paid for up to this point. Welcome to Clune. This is a little bit of a tough one for me to rank. It relies on jump scares a lot, and the story's not too terrible. So I definitely think it's a middle of the pack for B. It's better than September 7th, not as good as Locked Up though. Dark Deception. If I had to put Dark Deception is definitely middle C tier. It's not too bad. It's one of those that I wish was kind of a little longer instead of one level. Free to play, I think. Can't remember. And the concept's good. It's Maze Runner. I wish there was a little more to it than that. So the next one that we have is Fleshwater, and I am very torn between C tier and D tier because it's good for a one-time playthrough, but past that it's not terribly good. I think I'll have to give it C tier, probably above Dreader, because it at least has a good story to it. Even though it's a very, very short story, it has a very good one to it. All right, next up, Creepy Vision, by far in the running for the worst game I've played here. FNAF was at least tolerable. I was getting motion sickness left and right playing Creepy Vision. Not fun at all for me. So then next up, Fears to Fathom Episode 3, Carson House. Absolute S tier. This was the creepiest game I have played in years. I think maybe the only other thing that can get close to that is Outlast Whistleblower DLC. I think that that's probably the only thing that can even get close to Carson House. There was something about it that was excruciatingly creepy because it's in the kind of neighborhood that you wouldn't expect the game to happen in. It's happening at a time in which you would never expect it to happen. The security camera feature, which was a huge inspiration to do a couple other videos that we'll get to, the security camera feature was absolutely terrifying for me. The thing is that when you can let yourself get immersed in these kind of games, you have the greatest time of your life. And Fears to Fathom 3 Carson House deserves everything. I stopped playing it halfway through before all the main stuff was going on because I was so creeped out. And and I hadn't done this with any other game at all. I looked up how to finish Carson House. Now I know, big taboo, but I was that terrified. I wanted to get the video done. I wanted to get out of here, and I did not want to touch it again. Despite knowing how to do it, I was still genuinely scared and terrified out of my mind. Like, really. And it's not just playing it. I was editing the video and I was having chills down my spine watching what was going on and just kind of reliving that. And it is a true piece of art when a game can make you feel like that, even after you already know what's going to happen, and even after you've already played it and you're just editing it. The most horrifying game I've played, and it is absolutely deserving of every praise it gets because it is truly a masterpiece for horror in my view. Moving on. So, next one is Slender: The Arrival. I can't justify putting it in A tier because I don't think it was that good. Now, I didn't play the new chapters and everything, but I also hadn't played the game in almost 10 years. I enjoyed it. I had a blast playing it. I liked that there was updates or upgrade mechanics and not upgrade mechanics, upgraded graphics and made the game look smoother, run smoother. It sounded great. It's excellent. But there are games that are much better that I've played. Okay, Made of Skur. God, I want to like this one. I really do. I can't really put it that high though. Made of Skur, I was struggling. There's over an hour of footage of me just pretty much pounding my head into the table trying to figure out what to do next, and it was absolutely infuriating. I did not have a good time playing it. Okay, so next up is The Park, a game that I've owned for quite a few years, but I've never actually played it. I enjoyed this much, much more than I actually thought I was going to. The voice acting was great. Everything about it was so good. It might not be a generation or genre defining horror game, but I think it absolutely gets its props just behind Slender. Solely because Slender is a classic and The Park is something different. Okay, so now we have Emily Wants to Play. Definitely on par with like the FNAF games, but I'll have to put it on just under B. It's got a good concept, it's got a good idea, but the RNG is a little off for me and I'm not a huge fan of it. The game is good. I'm not a huge fan of some of the mechanics in it. Now we have Chased by Darkness. It's a game I played with my friends and something I really just didn't remember. There's a lot of confusing things about it, at least for me, but of course, when you haven't played it in years and don't actually do your research on it, it's gonna be like that. If I had to put it somewhere, I'll put it middle of C. I think that's probably a good spot for it. If you were to play all the maps or you're able to play with friends, that's one thing. For this, nah, I'll keep it there. I'm fine with that. Alternate Watch. I wanted to like this game. I absolutely wanted to like this game, and it's has a really good concept. It's parodies based off other ones. My problem with it is that the big main scary things, despite playing about 10 times, a lot of it I cut out because I just couldn't find any of the anomalies. The main things that are going to be the scariest never showed up for me. And I think that that's not that's not good gameplay. I'm looking for the big horror things to be showing up, and I gotta try and, outsmart everything. That was not the case there. Much better than FNAF 3, and a hell of a lot better than Creepy Vision. So the next one, Poppy Playtime. It's good. I'm gonna put it behind Fleshwater. The whole thing with Fleshwater is that the story I was actually invested in. Poppy Playtime, I was not invested into it at all. So Inscription, I think has to be an A tier for me. Inscription was very, very fun to go back to. It wasn't necessarily horror, but it's got those themes to it that really give off a nice creepiness that I enjoy. The gameplay is just from 20, 25 hours of playing, and I really enjoyed playing it all around, and it was one of the more enjoyable videos I did. So the next one is Don't Scream, a game that I beat in one go. And the thing with Don't Scream, the concept is good. There's not enough creepiness to it though. There just isn't. I've got to give Don't Scream very low B tier. And it's an early access, and the developers seem to be passionate about it, but there's not enough there to really give off that, I'm in this location. I am terrified for my life. Pretty much every single game above it does a really good job of putting you in that location and really making you go, okay, I'm in this scenario. So next one, Sir, You Are Being Hunted. A lot of people really enjoy it, and I enjoyed it as well. For a horror game, I was expecting more intenseness than there was. Kind of similar to Made of Skur. I really wasn't finding the stuff properly. I think there was about another half an hour footage I cut of just me running around like an asshole trying to find everything. Second to last, Dead Signal. With Dead Signal, this is another one that's a little tough. I enjoyed it. I think that it's a little too punishing, at least right off the bat. As for where I'd put this, I'd put it, top of C. As I was rounding out Scarefest, a lot of these games just stopped being scary for me. Maybe if Dead Signal was one of the first ones that I played for this month, maybe it would be a little higher. It's debatable that you could put it here next to FNAF 2. I'm comfortable with it being here because there are just other games that do it better. And the last video, which released yesterday from this video on October 31st, Fears to Fathom, Episode 4, The Iron Bark Lookout. A game that was very, very good. I enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed playing it. I was scared. I was tense. It had a lot of that Fears to Fathom winning formula. However, the game felt a little rushed towards the end. It is an absolute buy, but it's not S tier. I did not walk away from Ironbark Lookout going, "Whoa, I need to look over my shoulder for this because of what I just played." I'm thinking about this constantly. It's good, but it did not have the same effect that Home Alone did, Fears to Fathom Home Alone, and Fears to Fathom Carson House did. With that said, it is an absolute A tier. Is an absolute A tier, just shy. If it wasn't as rushed, I would probably give it an extra bit higher. The game, it basically goes through a very nice mood of storytelling and scare and intenseness, and then all of a sudden, hey, we're at the end. And I wish that there was a little more like in between the days that we skipped over. That's my tier list. Everybody's going to have their own opinions on it. Some of these videos were a blast to make. Pretty much everything in your S and A tiers were a blast to make. I would say everything in B was really, really good to make. C was a huge toss up and debatable, and D were videos that I should have done more research on and probably should not have made. Alternate watch, it's not really alternate watch's fault, but I digress. So I want to thank everybody for their support and anybody who's commented, liked, just even viewed. I really appreciate everything that all the effort that was put in. It's being noticed and shown around. And so I really enjoy that. And it's a real nice confidence booster to know that the 31 videos, hundreds of hours that I put into editing and getting all this stuff done right was a blast to do. And I'm going to heavily look into trying to do this again next year. And so until the next video, I'll see you.